Hey guys, well, I wasn't planning to do another video this soon, but uh, I thought I'd give you a day off from this. But I had an idea about something. I was going to do this video quite a long time ago, and I just kind of shelved it and didn't get around to doing it. But I thought about this on the way home. I had a long, slow drive home, so I thought, well, let me do this. So, what it is, I have some paperwork for us here. And what this is a list of all the vehicles that I can remember owning since I got my license in 1987 at age 16. And I wrote all this down pretty much in chronological order as best as I can recall it. And just filled the whole page up. So I was sitting here this evening after I got back home and I was reviewing this and I realized there was some emissions out of it. So omissions, not emissions. So I added to it. So I thought we would run through this. There's probably several people would like to hear this, I think, and it's kind of a time trip for me, a trip down memory lane. And in the interest of keeping the video somewhat shorter, I'm going to try to go through these fairly quickly, but I'm going to offer some remarks on some of these as I see fit. So, first car I ever had when I got my license is I got my grandparents on my dad's side. I got their hand-me-down car, which was the last car they owned. Actually, they died before that. In that car, they died in 1984, and I got my license in '87. So that car had just, I think my brother was driving it, and it was a '71 Impala Coupe. You see those every once in a while. It was not a Caprice coupe. It was an Impala coupe. The roof line's a little different on those. It was gold with a white top, and they had to rebuild an engine for it before I got it. It originally had a 400 two-barrel, and it had been overheated so many times that it just ruined it. So they rebuilt a 354 barrel, and so that's what I got when I turned 16, and I drove it all around, and it was a pretty good car. I never damaged it or anything like that. Took fairly good care of it, but as far as a kid can, run it pretty hard, but it took everything I dished out to it. So after about a year driving that car, I was kind of tired of driving a large car like that. So my brother, he was getting ready to upgrade to some other kind of car. So he had a 1981 Toyota Corolla SR5 liftback, which was a really ugly shade of brown. It was a 5 speed. And so they did some finagling. So we kept the Impala just as a backup. But I started driving that Corolla and drove it for a year or two, something like that. And then, kind of at the same time, my dad had retired, and he was getting into this kind of a business of fixing up. He didn't know anything about body work, but he went into partnerships with this guy that ran a body shop. So they started buying and fixing wrecks and things like that. So I cycled through in pretty short order. I got to drive several cars that they had fixed up to sell before they sold them, just kind of, I guess, to test them, a little bit. So these cars are all going to seem like really old cars now, but they weren't back then. 1987, 88, 89, these were new cars. The first one was a 1987 Chevy Spectrum, which was a rebadged Isuzu front-wheel drive Econobox. That car was nothing special. And then I had a 1984 Bronco 2. It's a four-wheel drive with a V6 in it. That was the worst SUV type vehicle I've ever driven ever. It was slow. It drank gas. It was awful. Then I had a 1986 Toyota pickup, which that was a really good truck. That was a high water mark of trucks back then. It was everything good about a Toyota. Then I went back to driving that Impala for a while, and then uh, I would drive it periodically when I was between cars, I guess. And then I got a 1986 Mustang Coupe, which was a four-cylinder. I had two of those. The first one was black with a four-speed. The second one, I take that back. The first one was blue with a four-speed. The second one was black with an automatic. I had them at two different times. They were both slow. They were both reliable. They were both very boring. Then I had a 1985 S10 pickup, which was a long bed base model with a V6 and a 4-speed. I really liked that truck, really did. I'd like to have another one at some point. Then I bought a 1986 Honda Civic sedan with a 5-speed in it from my friend who had kind of wrecked it somewhat. Still drove though. That was a nice car. It was a really good car. They were good cars back then. Drove great. Then I had a 1978 Mercury Grand Marquis 2-door coupe with a 460 in it. That was also from the same friend after he had done something to it. Oh yeah, the transmission was going out in it, so we fixed that. And I drove it for a while, but man, that was a huge car. I like to have it now, but I didn't keep it very long. It's too bad too. Then I had a 1972 Dodge Demon with a slant 6. I sold that to that same friend who has passed away by now, also by the way. But it was just a beige slant 6 Demon, and I sold it back to him. And he ran that car so hard that it threw a rod, and we went to go try to get it started. We didn't know what was wrong with it. He didn't tell me this part, but it had knocked the side of the block out. And the funny part is that that's where the negative battery cable connects to the block, and it still had a piece of block connected to the battery cable. We're just picking it up. I was like, this ain't gonna run. Then I had this is an obscure one. I had a 1981 Dodge Omni 024. Now, they had an Omni, which was that humped up one, but this was the one that was like a fastback. And man, that was an awful car. Golly dog, that was a bad car. It didn't even have a Mopar engine in it. It had a Volkswagen 1.7 liter Volkswagen carbureted engine, which ran like crap. I mean, it just back then, you had carburetor problems all the time with cars. They'd run good, and then all of a sudden they wouldn't run good. It's hard to shift to an awful car. Then I went back to that Impala again, driving it. Then I had get this one, I had a 1984 Fiero, which is, they called them a 2M4, so it was a 4-speed with a 4-cylinder engine, which is basically just like they took the front end of like a Century and just flipped it around and put it under that car, and that's what you had. God, that car was awful. That thing sucked. It was hard to shift. The clutch was abrupt. The pedals, the gas pedal, like you push the gas pedal down, and the top of the pedal would move, and then the whole thing would go down. So it's hard to drive. Hated it. Then I had a 1986 Buick Century with a 4-cylinder in it. That was it's a good car, but it was boring. Here's one you never see ever: a 1984 Mazda 626. That was a great car. Those, back then, if you got out of a Century and then got into like a Mazda 626 or a Camry or something like that, you just had an immediate impression, even for a kid like I was, that the Mazdas were like such much better cars. They drove better. They sounded better. Then get this one. I had my dad's car, but he passed it down to me. I think I got it actually when he passed away. 1985 Cadillac DeVille. That was the one that was shrunk up and had a 4100 engine in it. That car ran good. It wasn't very powerful, but we never had a lick of trouble out of it. Then the first car or truck I ever bought new was a 1992 Isuzu pickup. It was a very basic truck, 4-cylinder, 5-speed. I put about 60,000 miles on it and traded it for a Mustang, which was the next one, which is a 93 Mustang GT that I totaled. That was the first of a long line of Mustangs that I had like that. Then after I wrecked that one, I had a 1992 Cavalier, which was an automatic. That was a good car. I started having problems with the head gasket in it, but it ran to the last day I owned it. Then I had an 88 Mustang GT. I had a 1990 Mustang LX. I had a 1986 Mustang. That was the second one. And then for a while I got into G-bodies, General Motors G-bodies. I had a 1984 Cutlass, which was a V6 originally, but it had a hole burned in the piston. So we swapped in a 307 into it. That's a pretty easy swap, really. Then I had an 83 Cutlass with another blown up V6. That was a nice car. It was nicer than the 84. Then I had a 1985 Grand Prix V6 I got from my aunt. And then I had an 87 Grand Prix, which, remember that one? That was a black one, V8. a 1978 Malibu, the green one that you saw. Then I had a 1979 Malibu, the two-door that was wrecked. And then I realized I left one out there. I think I did. Also, in addition to that, I had a 1978 Buick Century wagon with a V6. I had a 1978 Cutlass Cruiser that somebody put a 400 in. I had a 1978 Grand Le Mans wagon with a 305 in it. I wish I'd kept that. That was a nice car. Really nice car. I had a 1981 Grand Le Mans with a V6 in it, which didn't run worth a crap. Something's wrong with the engine. I had a 1970 Valiant, like the one those I have out there. I got from the junkyard. As a matter of fact, that's back when you could buy a car from the junkyard. Had a 1972 Valiant, which I got from another friend with a slant six. Had a 1973 Satellite Sebring Coupe with a 318. It was all right. Had a 1992 Mustang GT. Had a 1989 Mustang GT. Had a 1990 Mustang LX hatchback, another one of those. I had a 1992 Chevy Lumina Euro sedan. And those cars, they're nice driving and running cars. They sound great. I like them for whatever reason. And then I had a 1993 Silverado, which you look through some of my videos way back there, I'll show a picture of that truck. And I bought that truck and financed it. It was used, but that was a really, really nice truck. I drove that truck for a long time by my standards. Then I had a 1985 Toyota Celica, which we actually had two of those. I had that one, and my mother had bought an 83 Celica GTS new. They put 480,000 miles on it before they retired it. Two engines in it. And the 85 that I had, we bought from a friend. I think something happened. I had to have a car like at short notice. And so it ran good. It had a few things went out on that car in quick succession. I think the clutch slave cylinder went out, the alternator went out, the fuel pump went out, and the rear end broke in it. It had a solid axle rear end in it. And I went over a set of railroad tracks one day, and something went pow back there. That was it. And then I had a 2002 Pontiac Bonneville SE. Excuse me. Which it was, didn't impress me too much. I had a 1996 Honda Accord. It's a white one. That was a great car too. You can't go wrong with a Honda or Toyota. You just can't. I had a 1987 Olds Custom Cruiser. That's the big wagon. That's the one. I don't know if I ever told the story, but that's the one. I think I did. I bought that car off eBay, and we went all the way to, where was Don Knotts born at? In West Virginia. That town up there in West Virginia. We drove all the way up there. We drove the Pontiac up there. Me and Phil did. And went up there and got that custom cruiser running and drove it back home. I think I told that story, though. So there's a video about that. I had a 1989 Chevy C3500 Dually. That was a 454 with a 410 gear in it. And the top speed was about 60 miles an hour. I had a 1993 Buick LeSabre that I bought off eBay. I had to put a fuel pump in and resold it. I had a 1996 F350 Ford truck with a diesel, the white one you saw. And a 1991 F250 diesel that you never did see. It was a tan. I had a 1993 F250 diesel, the blue one you saw. I had a 1984 Dodge D150. I had two different ones of those. I had a white one and I had that gray one that you saw way back there. And then I had that 1986 Dodge D250 that had the bad transmission in it. I had that green 76 Opel Isuzu. I had a 1996 Silverado, which was a 2500. That was a very good truck. I don't know if you ever saw that one. I had that 2001 Hyundai Elantra. I had that brown 75 Duster. I had the 66 Pontiac Catalina. I wish I'd kept that. My friend ruined it. I had a 1984 Dodge Aries. That was my grandmother on the other side, her car. She bought new. I had that, excuse me, I had that 1986 Dodge 600 that I should have kept. That was a convertible. I had that white 71 Valiant. I had the 1983 Ram 150. That was that brown one. that had the slant six in it. I had a 2005 Accord. You remember that one? I had that 2000 blue 2000 Accord. That was not that good of a car. It used a lot of oil. I had a 2003 Toyota Corolla that you guys never saw. I had a 1984 Pontiac 6000. You remember that one? You saw that one. You never saw this car. Had a 1958 Olds Super 88 sedan. That was a car that I like to have kept for a while longer. It had a weak engine in it. Imagine that. Had a weak engine in it, but the rest of the car was nice. It was black. Had a black and white interior. That was a sharp car. Guy from New York bought that. Had a 1996 VW Jetta gas. That was a pretty good car. Bought that one cheap. Had a 1987 Mazda Protege. I had two 1999 Mazda Proteges, a red one and a black one. You saw those. I had that brown 2000 Mazda Protege. I had a 1987 Cutlass sedan. That was a very, very nice running car. I bought that from a pawn shop. I had that 77 Caprice, the one Uncle Phil had. I had a 1990 GMC pickup, which was an extended cab maroon GMC. Had to put a transmission in it. I had a 2006 Fusion. You remember that one? I had that 73 Dart Sport. I had that green 73 Valiant. I had the green. It was green. Don't mind that. I'm having I had that 73 Mercedes 220D. I had the 90 Volvo 240. You never saw that car. That was a green one. Sedan. It was a good car. Ran kind of weird, but it was a good car. I had that stupid red Volvo V70, that 99 wagon. And I had that 88 Volvo 740. I had a 1978 Cadillac Sedan DeVille way on back there, the big one. Ran good. That was a good car. Had the 93 Chevy van. That's the one I caught on fire. Had the 91 Montero. I had a 1983 Jeep CJ7, just like R Peak. I was R Peak. Okay, run through. Yeah, I think I mentioned some of those. Oh yeah, I also had a 1980 Cutlass sedan, Cutlass Coupe with a 260 Olds engine in it. That was a good running car. Had an 87 Cutlass two-door, but you never saw that one, with a knocking 307. I had the 87 Grand Fury. I also, way on back there, had an 86 Fifth Avenue. 63 Olds, you seen that. 68 Fury, you saw that. Valiant, 68 Valiant. The 99 Regal, you remember that one. I had the two Q45s, a 1998 and a 2000. I had the 2005 Taurus, way at the first that I started this channel, that got wrecked. I had that 1991 Buick Roadmaster, the wagon that I had there. So the add-on list, the ones I'd forgotten about, I had a 1984 Isuzu pickup diesel, which those things are valuable now. I had not just one, but two different 82 Isuzu iMark diesels. I bought these two cars from the same person. I had, one of them was yellow, and they're both sedans. One of them was yellow, and it ran, but it had a bad oil leak. And then the other one, they didn't know if it ran. It was a kind of a silverish blue color, a nicer version. They're both 5 speeds, and it ended up they both ran. Or did they? Yeah, they did. They did. Both of them ran good. I had 83 iMark, that gray one. And I don't know if you guys, no, I had 2 of those too. That's right, I did. I've had 4 of those cars. I forgot about it. I thought I only had one of those 83s, but I had 2 of them. The second one was the one that I bought running, and you guys saw that one. But the first one I found another one that somebody had, a friend of mine found one in a junkyard that, I'm trying to think what happened with that. That's the one I had to put an engine in. It had a bad engine in it. Yeah, so I've had 4 of those. You notice a trend? And then, Here's one you haven't ever seen in a long time, I guarantee. How about a 1982 Chevy Citation? It was a green four-door, hatchback four-door with a V6 and a four-speed manual transmission in it. That'd be a cool car to have now. Those cars were introduced to a lot of fanfare back then, but they had brake problems, and so that kind of ruined their reputation. My cousin had a 1981 Pontiac Phoenix, kind of like that, and they also had who remembers the 1970s, late 70s Pontiac Astor, which I think was like they renamed it to Sunbird, but it used to be called the Astor. I think it was a version of I think that might have been a version of a Vega or a version of a Monza. And then I remembered I also had a 1984 Pontiac Sunbird. My friend had one also. His was automatic. Mine was a four-speed manual. And mine ran a lot better than his did. That was a good car, actually. And then I saved this one for last. I hope some of you guys do too. You watch Old Car Alley. He's been restoring that Galaxy. His is a 66, but at one time I bought a 68 Ford XL. It's not called a Galaxy XL. It's just called the Ford XL. It was a dark blue car. We drug it out of the woods, and it was dirty, man. It had been sitting for about 2 or 3 years. And we cleaned it up and got it running, and that was such a nice car. It turned out to be a great car. It was a 390 with a 2-barrel. And I think it had a C6 in it, but it had the same rear end that Howard's got in his car. It was a 9-inch with a 300 gear ratio in it, I think. So that's it. If you wanted to count those and let me know how many you came up with. I had that Blazer, the white one, the white big full-size Blazer. Like I said, there's going to be some I missed. Somebody's going to ask me, what's my favorite car out of all these? And that's a tough question because they're so different. There's such a variety of which that I like the best and wish I had now. Let me think about this. I'll try to give you a quick answer. Which one do I wish I had now? Wish I had kept? I think the one that I wish I had kept the most, my most stupid decision to sell a car would be that the white 1993 Blazer. I think that was the dumbest decision I ever made to sell because those are very rare, and that was a very well-equipped Blazer, and I shouldn't have sold that. I should have kept it. And probably the car, I won't say it's my favorite car on this list, but the one that I wish I had kept besides that one, the second most, would be that 58 Olds Super 88 because that would be quite a valuable car now. And it would have been fun to work on. But you guys got to remember, back then, I was just a wheeler dealer. I just bought stuff to fix it up and flip, and that's all I did. So I had no real interest or capabilities in repairing them like I do now. Interest I have now. Capabilities, we'll see. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to chill, so I'm going to go ahead and put this up for you, and I hope you have a good evening and found this a little bit interesting. And feel free to ask me if you want to know more about any of these cars I've listed. Feel free to ask me in the comments. I'll be glad to answer you. But you tell my voice is kind of scratching right now, so I'm going to have to quit talking. I have a fragile voice box. All right, guys. I'll see you. Take care now.